Let's go test radio, test radio. There's a little bit of a formatting problem here, so we're just trying to figure it out. No big deal. In the comment center, what do you guys see? Do you guys see a chart of the SPYs, and do you see, you know, my face? We're trying to just figure out the layout. I feel like the format's a little different. It's fine though. I'll leave it for now. All right. What do you guys see? By the way, good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Redler. I am the Chief Strategic Officer of T3Live.com. Welcome to today's 6:30 Club. That's what it looks like. All right. We're just trying to figure out the format. There's a new formatting on StreamYard. I don't think. Very hard to see details in the charts. Let's see. Not sure why it all changed. No. What could you guys see now? Well, as long as you see the whole chart, you don't have to see my face. Now, yeah, show me your phone. Just the way it's looked. I'm sitting here with my guy.
On here it looks fine, but on the computer it doesn't.
What do you mean? Why this looks fine? All right, enough. All right, guys. Listen, it's fine. It doesn't really matter. At this point, you know, it's Thursday. It's 6:35. I feel like a lot of things are going on. A lot of moving pieces. You know, I'm sure you heard that the 43-day government shutdown is already done. I have no idea what the hell they did there for the 43 days, except for make people's lives a little bit inconvenienced, whether they missed flights, whether they didn't pay people, and now they're reimbursing everything. You got the old look. X is messed up. It looks even better than normal. All right, well, whatever it is, there's a chart of the SPYs. You know, if you look here, SPYs right now are down $1.50. So sometimes, you know, when you get a situation that everyone's focused on, they try and then everyone thinks it's going to be one scenario turned into another. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there are people like, Red Dog, do you think they're going to sell the news now that they opened the government? You know, and we already had the gap up on Monday. Did we steal on Monday from Thursday? I'm like, we might. You know, right now, if you look here, the SPY's down $1.50. You know, you have 681.89. Can you see the little blue box? Yesterday's low is 680.95. So if they're going to sell the news, which I'm not saying they're going to, if they're going to sell the news, they have to break that spot. The next spot, which I think is actually a little bit more important, is 678.73. You know, that would be a spot. Like sometimes you don't always hold, you know, so, you know, always so contained, you know, it's not always so easy, you know, and being easy for the active longs would be holding right here, going sideways. And if you look at the move from the 50-day, which was a great cover on Friday. I know a lot of guys have made a lot of money buying on Friday. And now, you know, you had your 4-day move up on the optimism of a government opening. Now we're opening, so you know, we'll see if they stole from that. So anyway, 680.95 is your first spot of support, and you know, we're not even there yet. You're $1 above. You know, the Qs, everyone's talking about how bad the Qs are and how bad tech is, and I get it. You know, yesterday for me was a bad day. I was up a lot of money pre-market. You know, I was pretty excited that maybe Google would break out and Apple was looking good and Amazon was building, and then all of a sudden, boom, a sell program came in tech, and I was like, whoa, what the hell was that? And you know, they didn't really recover that much, but that was hard to see. Some other things that was easy to see was like, you know, Meta has been really weak, Microsoft's been really weak, you know, Oracle been down every day, but those names were looking like, hey, there's money there, there's rotation, then smack. So now the question is, did they change or do they just need another day? We're gonna have to figure that out. Phil says, what's the good news with Apple that Cramer's talking about? I don't know. Don't over focus on Cramer. It's really odd. CNBC is such an odd place now. Like I used to be on CNBC from 2008 to like 2015 when they had the guest, They reported the news. Now, like the the guys that report the news are trying to be the experts, and all CNBC is trying to do is sell you stuff. Whether it's CNBC Pro, whether it's I don't even know what the hell they're doing over there anymore, except for people aren't watching. What I would suggest is in the morning you come in, you listen to some music like this. Let's see, have a little iced coffee. Yeah. I know. So everyone's saying the 6:30 club looks a little elongated. We'll see. But anyway, so with that being said, the way you go about your morning is what you want to do is you want to be comfortable and you want to go over your charts. You want to go over your time frames. You want to go over your positions. You want to see where money's rotating in and out from. And I know that the Qs have some inside action, not leading. There's been money in the banks. There's been money in healthcare. There's money in other places, which happens. Rotations happen. All you hear about rotation. But by the time people start talking about the rotation 10 times a day, usually the rotation goes back to wherever it was. So I'm just saying, be careful. Either which way, if they're going to sell the news and if the Qs are really going to come in, which I'm not saying they are, it's only down $1.25. It's got to break below 617.52. So 3 inside days. We'll see what we get today. It's funny because I remember Lilly, guys like Red Dog, they were asking me about Lilly here. Okay. And, you look at the charts and you look at everything that goes on. I remember right here for some fundamental guys like, hey, Red Dog, look at Lilly. I'm like, you know what? It's real broken. A lot of things have to happen for Lilly to get much better. First thing here was, break above this little lower range, which it did. And it filled that gap, right? That was trade number one. There's so many different trades in trading. Then, it kind of hit the downtrend line and looked like it was going to fail. And then right here was like, wow, look at that. It's now back. It's now tight. So instead of listening to CNBC or Bloomberg or Fox Business, whatever the hell you're doing, you're looking at your chart. And then if you knew what the narrative was where, the president keeps going for different sectors, whatever, all of a sudden that happened. And then that happened. That is an unbelievable move. Active sequences get reborn and they go. Same way some things end. A lot of guys I know have been really hyper-focused on Oracle. So if you remember with like Oracle, okay, I always tell you that if you sell the 8-day as an active trader or sell the 8 and 21 day, when momentum breaks, if you're trading for a living, you get to test things, at the 50, 100, or 200 day. So, what you don't want to do is you don't want to get like vendettas against stocks. And I know some guys that have been looking at Oracle every day. They haven't looked at anything else. They were so upset that they missed this big gap up that all they've been doing is buying a dip in Oracle and they're getting kicked. They're getting their asses kicked. Excuse my French. Like first thing just as a little lesson that broke. And then right here was like the day that Oracle said, it doesn't matter about whatever the revenues, the power of the grid, whatever that news was, and then PS, here you are at the 200 day. So maybe there's a trade here, but if you've been stuck trying to buy Oracle below the 8-day moving average, because you missed this, you're having a tough time. Anyway, where is Oracle this morning? It's down $1.40. So yesterday's low. So some people are like, what's a Red Dog reversal? I'm like, that's the way to catch oversold bounce, not by buying, trying to catch a falling knife. It trades through a level. People get stopped out. They've been trying it too much higher, and then it goes below, reverses, you buy versus that level, and then you see a rebuild, and then you see if you caught it in a calculated fashion besides blowing yourself up. Anyway, so this is what Oracle is. So maybe it opens up or reclaims 226 and you get a trade, but again, if you've been buying this whole way down because you made money the whole way up in Oracle, you have to switch gears. Same thing that happened with all of these, super growth names, the quantum computing names that I haven't looked at IONQ in 6 weeks. Back here, it was our bread and butter. Like right here, remember how IONQ is fantastic? IONQ was tight. You had a channel, you had an inside flag. And I literally, when it broke right here, I'm like, I'm done with it. It broke the 8-day and then it wedged. And now here, it's gone from 80 to below 52. It happens. That's why you use moving averages. Use the 8-day, use the 21-day. Here, it's above all of them, tight, looking awesome. I don't care that there's no revenue. I don't care that it's a great setup. And then it broke right there, and then it had a continuation to the downside. And then the whole group broke down. And if you've been trying to buy a dip in these things, saying, "Well, this is the future," you gave back everything that you made. You have to be able to know when stocks change. Remember Iron, note that group. So one more story, and then we're going to get into the action today. Look at this BTDR. Remember, I was looking at it. I was focused on it right here. It was supposedly the next IREN. Awesome. Had that gap up on the news. I made a lot of money that day. It was like my biggest day in a while. And then all of a sudden, it was wedging, and Iron came out with good news and got sold. That was when Palantir got sold. The whole complexion changed on the AI trade. And right here, which I post to you guys 1,000 times about sell rules. You sell into strength. That's one way. Plus, if you have earnings and you go down on earnings, that's just horrible. So you sell right here a little bit when it does into strength, fails to hold. And then if you open up, can't hold a prior high, you take out a prior low, that is a friggin' outside day. As an active trader, you run for the hills. You don't say, well, the technology, well, this. No, you get the frick out of the way. And P.S., this thing's down to $12. I hate when traders lose more money than they have to lose. And this right here, this was the day that said this stock is over, and it might not, maybe you could play a little bounce or this and that, but you sell into strength, you don't hold a prior high, and you take out a prior low. This wedge formation that if you thought it was going to break to the upside, that was the end of the trade. So people say, Red Dog, where do you put your stops? You put stops in where the trade changes and it ends. So let's move forward. So that's just a little bit of history, a little bit of learning. I could go on for 5 hours, and I've done that with Redler Ultimate Access. I've done courses, I've done weekend seminars where I go over action, I show past charts because patterns repeat themselves, etc. But anyway, so some people are like, hey, Red Dog, what's the story here with Apple? Because I've been really hyper focused on Apple, and it's been making me good money. I'm like, the trade only changes here if it breaks 266. I am in Apple because I'm buying it versus the 8 and 21-day going sideways. And I think that if the market's going to be seasonally strong through November, Apple could be a vehicle. So I'm long Apple. And yesterday was kind of tricky. It came in really fast. I wound up buying more and trading around. And I'm like, the only way, I'm going to get out of this trade is if it breaks here, because that changes. My son Chase has been in Apple for 5 years. He doesn't care if it breaks 266. My best friends had it for a decade, making gazillions of money. For me as a trade, November 13th, to get paid to add to my quarter, I want to hold it verse here and add above 277. If this breaks, I'm out. Who knows? Maybe their fourth quarter is not going to be as good. Maybe China demand is not as good. Maybe whatever it is. That means my trade has changed. Right now, it hasn't. So I know yesterday for Google, I have a lot of Google on. Okay, my Google trade is because I'm like, hey, it's holding higher. It's above the 8-day. It's above the 21-day. Had good numbers going sideways. If the stock market's going to go to all-time highs again, maybe Google's a tech candidate. Maybe. So I'm long. This is my out. If it were to break here, this would kind of suck, to be honest. This would make it loose. Some super active traders say, hey, Red Dog, I'm using 283. So you want to use 283 as a stop. If you're not as active, sometimes it takes a little bit more time. You might need to use 275. But this is the reason I'm in the trade, for an upper bull flag to make new highs, buy it prior, trade it through, and go. If that changes, just like Oracle changed, just like BTDR changed, just like Serve changed, if the reason you're in a trade changes, you get out. You don't stay there. Because I know a lot of traders, I'm just going over this now because there are a lot of traders in the last few weeks lost a lot of money by not switching gears and realize the action has changed. Even 2 days ago, ASTS, a name that we made a ton of money, the satellite company, beautiful trade to 100 plus. It's been being sold into strength. They came out with numbers. The numbers seemed good. It was down that day. Like, I'm buying ASTS. I'm like, why are you buying ASTS? The numbers were out. It didn't go up. And now you look at ASTS, this looks like, hey, Red Dog reversal. This was the best setup. This was another great setup. And Red Dog reversal sell, lower high. And now this kind of looks like it might break to 61.89, and go lower and be different. So all I'm saying is to you, you have to realize when the trade potentially changes. So as an active trader, you're not caught holding the bag. There's always a lot of bag holders. If you start shorting here because you thought ASTS had no revenues and it was a company of the future that's overvalued, you probably got stopped out instead of waiting for the red dog reversal. And then anyway, so now you could try this for 61.89. I'm just trying because I think there's a lot of guys that are very frustrated out there because the trade kind of changed and went to pharmaceuticals and but there are things working. Like look at JP Morgan. I posted this chart the last few weeks, post earnings right here when it got above 301. So JP Morgan's working. If you're in it, now you can move your stop up, maybe move your stop to 312. The other day I posted Goldman Sachs did a red dog reversal at 773, poked its head above this trend line here, and look at that follow through in Goldman Sachs. As a chief strategic officer, I go over a lot of trades. Some I'm not in. I wasn't in those two trades, but those were great trades. Yes, it's Daniel Hopkins. It's all about your levels and your sell rules, and the reason why you're in Goldman Sachs was great. You could have been long with the red dog reversal when it held the 50-day like the spies and the Qs, and then added as it took out the trend line here, and you got paid yesterday. You weren't frustrated that Oracle was going lower, that the grid stocks were going lower, that Google had a sell program. You were chilling. For me, I was frustrated yesterday. I wasn't chilling. Has the narrative changed on Palantir? That's a good question, Toppin, because we're going to need to know that. Palantir's one of the super growth companies. That's the poster child of it. It was sold on earnings, came in, tested support. So down here was a trade. And now it's, I don't know. You could probably take this a little bit lower, and it's trying to prove it can go sideways. This is a battleground right now. Palantir is a battle. And if you want to use it as a gauge to see who wins the battle in super growth, then that's cool. Right now, it just filled this gap. This is your new support pivot 180. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes here. So Palantir right now is down $1.37. Maybe some guys will say I'll trade this from red to green today. That's probably decent for cash flow, or it doesn't hold 180, and then that the best of the best is starting to trend lower in the selling strength, and you have to have you have to kind of get out of the way. So with that being said, that's 180. Nvidia is very, very important now. It is. Why is Nvidia important? Because you've had a huge move. Probably one of the most fundamentally rock solid companies, but it's trapped in this the AI narrative. Is 212-year high of Nvidia for 2025? There's only 6 weeks left. If it is, then the market's gonna not have much momentum, especially in this area. So in order for this to see 177 right now, it's got to hold 191. And for today, let's see, Palantir. Let's put them together here. Nvidia is down $1. Palantir is down $1.34. For today, if you're these are range trades right now, kind of. They're rebuild range trades. So today we'll see if the market wants to go red to green. These guys might be good red to green type trades. If the market wants to break and they want to sell the news of the government reopening, these things are not going to go from red to green, and they're going to break levels. Nvidia is going to break 191. I'm saying if they want to sell the news. These are things you have to think about. If this, then that. If that, then this. And Palantir is going to break whatever that 180 level is. So these two names are always up on my screens. I have 6 screens, and I'd rather look at the action and the keys to the day than anything that's going on any network TV station anywhere. There's no hindsight. When things break, things break. That's why you look at charts and look at the patterns, look at how it happens. So when it's in the moment and happening, your go time has you get the hell out of the way. I've been out of the way on a lot of these things. What hindsight? You learn from hindsight. Mark, patterns repeat themselves. Anyway, AMD. Okay, AMD is still probably one of the few names that are intact. You could say, hey, you could be long AMD. Go for it. Be long versus whatever this low is from yesterday. This is 250. It's above the moving averages. And if you want a momentum trade, if you're a momentum trader, maybe there's a trade through the highs here. So AMD is doing better. Does it need time to rebuild up here? Yeah, probably, maybe. Same way, this was a one gap to trade against. So AMD is trading better. But it's going to be hard that if tech continues to be a little pressured for AMD, to stay special. Yeah, old tech has been great. Cisco, a lot of people played Cisco after hours. As soon as it got above 75, they were buying it. And now you're at highs here. Cisco has been one of the great names, but Oracle hasn't. But anyway, check out JD. JD's up a whole foot. It's funny. These Chinese names are hard. They're hard. They're erratic, and I don't like to trade hard, erratic, and what's sometimes dictated by overseas action. Like the numbers in JD look good. It's up 40 cents. Look at the chart of JD. JD's been a disaster. I made decent money on JD when you had this little move right here. I remember, I thought Chinese stocks were going to go great. We were playing Baba, we were playing Baidu. I bought it here. And I tried to play options, and every time it dipped, I bought it all the way up to 36. You were never able to buy strength, and this is where JD is. Everyone's kind of stuck. Stuck in names that made them money back in the day. Futu, okay. So someone's saying, look at Futu. Looks better. Futu, you could draw a chart like this. This is support. If you think it's going to make a new high, it's got to get above this spot and then see that. I know there's some news on Baba this morning about how they're going to compete with ChatGPT. So actually, this was a nice little pattern right here in Futu. Yeah, you could be long versus 178, and if it gets above 190-ish, there's the highs here. But look what Baba had to do before. So Baba broke big support, probably got anybody out, and now Baba's up 6. These Chinese names are tough. 164. What's the high here? This high here is 161. So where's 164? Right here. So see if it gets rejected into the 8-day or not. But this gave you no reason to be long Baba anymore. If you trade by technicals, which is what I do, like you look here, this, I bet you there's some people even short. Like, right, Redler, look at this. It's breaking big support. It's going to the 100-day. And meanwhile, now, Baba's up $6. There's just like no continuity, rhythm. Traders need continuity. You need a rhythm. You need to buy a dip, add through a level, sell some. Anyway, you're saying Boeing gap nag. Boeing's another tough trade. Look at Boeing, like, what's so you could buy Boeing versus support here, but it's like this is a broken trade with all the moving averages above. There's nothing really special about that. But anyway, where I made money yesterday? In Pfizer. That's how I was struggling yesterday, looking for ideas. But it was a good one, right? You had a day one in Pfizer. I bought a little bit of a dip. I added to it when I went through here, and it gave you a trade. I guess if you look at Pfizer, which is kind of crazy, that was probably my best day trade yesterday, because that's one of my day count rules, right? Pfizer had a decent day one. It opened down a little bit. You buy it, you add to it, and that's that. Anyway, Tesla's been horrendous. I don't want to keep complaining and all. I'll do it with TSLLs just because I got to clean up. I got to call my friends at Transpire and help me clean up some of these charts. Like this is TSL, which is double Tesla, rejected at 23. It's now, this is actually probably vulnerable now because you look, it's in the bottom end of this channel. So you have a channel here, which is okay when the channel's intact. Now it looks like, you just had the market rally literally from Friday from the 50-day up, and Tesla's been lagging. So that's not great. Tesla's great when it's leading, now when it's lagging. So got to be careful there. UNH, yeah, UNH. Okay, everyone is so excited about UNH. What did it do? It turned off the lows. Yeah, UNH can get to, to 360-ish. There's a trade there. But anyway, I'm babbling a little bit. Oh, it's 6:57 already. Holy cow. All right, I got to get on track here. I'm just going to leave you with that. You did have a lot of systematic trades. Sometimes it's easier in the indices, sometimes it's not. The indices at least weren't predatory the way some of these sectors in the rotation. Sometimes the rotation is vicious. If you're caught in this like rotation, you're a little lost. Just take a step back. Don't get on tilt. Don't buy a stock because it's down 12 days in a row. Don't short a stock because it's up 10 days in a row. Find good patterns that make sense. This was beautiful. This held the 50-day. You could have covered shorts from 685 down to 664 down, literally, $20. Gave you a gap up to trade against, made a higher low, took out that candle. That was nice action in the SPYs if you trade the SPYs or you trade the S&P cash. Everything else has kind of been a little choppy with buying balances, selling balances, rotation. So it hasn't been the easiest. Sebastian wants me to look at IBM before we go. IBM, look at that reversal there too. This this was a reversal. So once you get a reversal like this, like you do sometimes at the top, you pay attention. Yeah, and IBM's been pretty good, but IBM actually gave you a little bit of a red dog reversal sell yesterday. Got above the prior day's high, sold down. Maybe it sees the 8-day. Yeah, IBM was reborn. I remember when they said IBM was when money goes to die, and then all it was doing was rebuilding. XBI's been pretty good. Amgen, so you've been riding IBB, BMY, Amgen. They're rotating out into pharma. They did that already. Now you hear what they've rotated into for so long. It's time. Like people like, hey, Red Dog, they're rotating into Lilly now. No. They rotated into Lilly here. That's when a trader should have got involved and put it on their A list. And then here, now you want to buy Lilly? I wouldn't buy what's my worst friend's money up there. Even if it goes a little bit higher, you did it wrong. You got to figure out the right entries. You got to be there a little bit early. Once everyone's talking about it, it's usually a little bit too late. But anyway, with that being said, good luck today. I will be doing a 6:30 club tomorrow. It's Friday. I know I don't do it on Fridays. I do it Monday through Thursday, but I wasn't here Monday, Tuesday. So I figured I'll do one on Friday. I'll do another 520, the 522, a workout where I already did it this morning. 20 minutes in the sauna, full body workout, mobility, get the blood flowing, get a little sweat, some supersets. I talk stocks in there. I talk life in there. For those of you who are up early and need a friend, they say get a dog. Well, I'm the Red Dog, and I'm here for you. Sorry, I'm babbling a little bit today. I'm a little lost myself. I'm not chasing things. I'm looking for good setups. I'm not trying to force it. I've had a really good fourth quarter so far. I've given back a little bit, so I'm trying to figure out, where I can go, where I'm not chasing, where it's strategic, where it's calculated, and make some sense versus revenge trading, because I think a lot of people are getting a lot of hurt. Sorry for the format of this today. I think it's a little bit different, and we'll make sure to fix it up for tomorrow. Later, guys.